This is week 10 and ELA. To set up the week, we're going to first spend 2 days reading a text titled Regulating Recess Will Help Bullying. This is a nonfiction text, and we're going to spend 2 days reading, annotating. The first day is going to be mostly that. We're going to hopefully get to our 2 multiple choice questions at the end of that day, and then start thinking about hopefully the short response. At least, if we have a great day, then we'll get to answer statements. And then Tuesday we will do one short response. It's going to be pretty teacher guided, and then they're going to do their exit ticket, which is a similar question along with a couple of multiple choice questions. Then Wednesday we will do another nonfiction text titled When Bullying Victims Seek Revenge. It's a shorter text. We then have 4 multiple choice questions and 1 short response. Each of these sets of questions ask the reader to connect one part of text to another, and they're pretty simple in the connections that are made. It's generally that the sections of a passage have similar theme, or that one gives an example of the other. And so those are the 2 ideas that we're going to try and stress. Then Thursday and Friday, we have on-demand testing. So I think that the first text, Regulating Recess Will Help Bullying, is going to be a little bit abstract to students who are not accustomed to thinking about things in terms of, best practice for child psychology. Actually, both of these texts could be looked at through that prism. So I want to really set them up in a way that students are going to conceptualize the material even before we start reading. So the first text is titled Regulating Recess Will Help Bullying by Sandy Louie. What does the word regulating mean? Because we know what the other words mean, right? Recess, you know what recess is. Recess is playing around during or after lunch. Most schools, up until middle school at least, offer recess to some degree. So we know what recess means, we know what helping means, and we know what bullying means. But what does regulating mean? And we're going to define regulating, so I want you to underline regulating. And we're going to write in the margin here to add rules to, because regulations add rules to something. There's regulations about driving, right? When you drive a car, there's regulations that say that you need to go the speed limit. You need to stop at certain times. You need to merge lanes at certain times. These are all regulations. That means they're rules. What are some of the regulations here at TEP for you as a student? You need to be silent in the hallway. You need to carry your book baggie. You need to do your homework is a way that we regulate how you behave at school. Now, recess, though. What do you think this title suggests if it says regulating recess? What would that mean? We get a hand, hopefully, that says putting rules on recess or putting rules into recess. Great. Right off the bat, what do we think about that? Adding rules to recess. You think probably that there should be no rules at recess, says some boy. I can guess who it's going to be. But maybe some rules could be helpful to recess. Do you have rules? Do you have regulations on your recess right now? And I'll bet that you do. I'll bet that there's regulations that say that you can do certain things and you can't do other things. So what this text is really asking you is, the question of the title is, should there be rules on recess? So we want that to be our thought as we go through. So we read the text, we annotate together. Now we come back, because this is a nonfiction text. We want to identify the topic and the main idea. So what's the topic of this text? Recess, somebody says. Okay, yeah. And I'm going to paraphrase to say play. Okay? Is it any type of play that this is talking about? It's really talking about regulated play or structured play or rules with play. So that's our topic. I wrote structured play. What is the main idea of the text? What is it saying about putting rules on your play? Hopefully somebody says that structured play can prevent bullying. And notice how the title gave that away. We can't stress this enough. When you're doing a reading on nonfiction, the title, as well as each subheading that you see in the text, like safety comes first, or kids need a chance to run around, or kids aren't allowed to push each other. These give you a great understanding as to what is the main idea of that text. Now, let's look at the first multiple choice questions. And number 1 says, what is the most important way that paragraphs 8 through 10 develop the passage? We're going to be looking over today, tomorrow, and Wednesday at a lot of questions that ask you to go back into the text and read one section, figure out what it means, and compare it to another section. What does that section mean? When you're doing this, make sure you're reading the subheadings. Also, make sure that you're really reading the text. I'm not going to ask you to raise hands and identify yourselves, but I know that there are a lot of people in the room right now that feel like if they really read something carefully the first time, that's going to be good enough. You can just answer the questions, you can remember it more or less, and you'll be fine. No matter how great of a reader you are, how smart you are, how great a memory you have, anytime a question asks you about certain paragraphs in a text, you absolutely must go back to that part of the text, read and annotate it again, because if you do not, then you are going to be at a severe disadvantage. I do this work over the weekend, and as I'm doing now, and I don't stand a chance. I can't get any of these questions right if I don't go back and really carefully reread that text. So we go back through paragraphs 8 through 10, we reread, and then we answer the questions. And after we go back and reread 8 through 10, we should see that they present reasons that oppose the main argument. The main argument, as we wrote down as our main idea, is that structured play can prevent bullying. Well, paragraphs 8 through 10 say kids should have free time, there should be no rules, they should get to run around and play. So that goes contrary to the main idea, and so C is correct. Now, number 2 says, how are paragraphs 1 through 4 important to the passage? So we read paragraphs 1 through 4 again, and we look at our answer choices. Do they describe the setting of the passage, the time and the place? No, because this passage doesn't really have a setting. It's more about all schools everywhere all the time. Does it get the reader's attention and interest? Does that hook you in? That the writing starts with a story about kids on a playground talking to each other. I think it kind of hooked me. I'm going to put a little maybe beside it. How about C? They explain why recess needs to be changed. Do those paragraphs 1 through 4 explain, in a good argumentative style of writing, why recess needs to be changed? No, there's very little of that in the article at all, and definitely not in this section. Or does it introduce a solution to the main problem? That's the worst answer choice by far. There is no solution presented. So, we know that even if you don't feel like that was a great hook, that was the intention of the first 4 paragraphs, was to get the reader's attention and interest, so B must be the correct answer.